Young ladies and gentlemen, hello to each and every one of you. I hope you are all doing well. As for me, by the grace of God, I am well, except for some professional commitments. But by the grace of the Almighty, starting tomorrow, everything should certainly be okay. And we will resume with strength and determination the broadcast here on the platform of Awakening Consciousness. In international news, the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, has just broken his silence in response to NATO's growing determination for war. Vladimir Putin has just come out of his reserve. All this time he had been watching. He watched the people from NATO making statements here and there. We need to increase military spending. We need to increase this. We need to increase that. But these were just simple statements in the media. Until at this last NATO summit, which was held in The Hague starting on the 24th of June 2025, they put it down on paper, and Donald Trump boasted about having secured from the European states a commitment to raise the percentage of their GDP to 5%. 5% of GDP must be devoted to defense. Just imagine, that's way too much. It's an enormous amount that each European country will have to pay to arm themselves, to rearm, to position themselves. And all of this, as they clearly state, is to confront Russia. It's to confront Russia because according to them, according to several reports, Russia represents the greatest threat. And according to several reports, the confrontation between Russia and the NATO member countries will begin between 2029 and 2030. So, for them, this is the right time to arm themselves. According to the various existing reports, Russia will start by attacking the Baltic countries, especially Estonia. Then, it will target Poland, and the others will follow. Germany wanted to steal the spotlight from these countries, so much so that Germany started to act really belligerently. But some time later, when Russia began to chase German ships in the Baltic Sea, we saw that Germany calmed down and Great Britain took over. And from then on, Russia started targeting British nuclear submarines to make them face its most powerful missile, called Orashnik. Anyway, all that was just an aside. It's just to show how many times Russia and NATO don't get along. And on top of all that, they have just increased their gross domestic product. The money that will be allocated to defense, they have just raised it to 5%. It was difficult, but they managed to do it. Even if for now it's just for show, it's already been decided, which makes the situation complicated. Vladimir Putin breaks his silence. He says this: before we go deeper, please, I humbly ask you to share the video conference. Share it as much as possible. Give lots of likes, yes, lots of thumbs up. And above all, don't forget to subscribe if you're new here. The West's intention to increase its defense spending shows its aggressiveness. That's the summary of his statement. In other words, the fact that the West chooses to increase its military spending is a sign of the West's aggressiveness. This is just a game of ping pong, right? Meanwhile, Putin himself has quadrupled his military spending. But when the West also prepares itself, he says it went out this way, it came in that way, it got split over here. You just have to follow global geopolitics, that's all. If someone explains global geopolitics to you and you actually understand it, it means the person explained it badly, and that the person explaining it meaning, he himself didn't understand it either. Because everything changes at any moment. Positions are taken based on interests. Let's be clear. This is a platform for raising awareness. We live in a world where everyone pursues their own interests. Yes, when those interests are satisfied, people say, yes, that's good. When they are not satisfied, people say, that's not good. This is how the world works. So, in full, in its entirety, what is Vladimir Putin saying? He says this. He says, against a backdrop of rhetoric about aggression, against the backdrop of rhetoric about Russia's supposedly imaginary aggression, that is the rhetoric. the words regularly used by the West to make people believe. In other words, for Putin, these are words born of their imagination. They make people believe that Russia is aggressive. So he says, against the backdrop of these speeches that portray Russia as aggressive in an imaginary way, they start talking about the need to arm themselves. The West starts talking about the need to arm itself. He says, well, let them arm themselves. Let's examine the structure of their spending, the structure of their weapons. We consider that the suggestion of Russian aggressiveness is completely unfounded. We are not the ones who are aggressive. Rather, it is this so-called collective West that is aggressive. Putin accuses them directly. Meanwhile, he himself has armed himself, and to an extreme degree. He has even allocated additional budgets for the military. The number of recruits he has brought into his army is indefinite. Well, but let's say that Russia has its reasons. Listen, when several countries unite against just three, you still have to fight. If Iran hadn't prepared itself well, how many countries would have united against Iran? France was involved, not to mention their Gunther, their Baobab, their Dijon, which we call the United States of America. Not to mention Jordan, not to mention which other country, and Israel. They had all risen up against Iran. So today, Russia is right. We have the 27 countries of Europe. And if you add to that the other NATO member countries, all against one. So Russia is also right to denounce this. But what remains clear is that Russia says is a collective, a so-called collective, but one that is aggressive. So then, Russia is sounding the alarm. Putin is warning. They are rearming themselves. So he too is going to double down. He is going to rearm even more, especially since Putin will work with his allies, notably China. Speaking of China, by the way, you know that the fact that China is providing a lot of technology to Russia is really hurting. So he will work with China, Iran, which has experienced firsthand the dangerous aggression of NATO, of the West. So Russia too is going to prepare itself. Anyway, this whole situation is going to continue. We will continue to monitor and inform the world about what is happening, offering our various analyses and insights. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the top international news story. So please share it as much as possible. I'll be back with more news shortly. This was the voice of your one and only Samurai.